Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Grey's Anatomy Season 3, Episode 17, Scars and Souvenirs. The episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So in this episode, we'll start as always by going over which patients were seen and then into the personal dramas. So first patient was an old friend of Derek's who had a tumor that they would reduce every 2 years but would grow back over those 2 years. And when she first comes in, she says that this is going to be her last surgery and that she's going to spend the next 2 years living her life on beaches in the sun before allowing herself to die. However, then Derek comes up with a more risky surgery that would allow her, if she survived it, to be able to get the full tumor out and therefore live her life to the fullest for a long time and not have to keep coming in for surgery every 2 years. And at first she's against that, but he said, we do this, you could live or die on the table, or you only have 2 years. Since you've already made the decision to die, like, take the risk, and kind of pushes her into it. So she agrees. And then during the surgery, they do almost lose her to an air embolus in her heart, but she does pull through and they do get all of the tumor out. And at the end, he does apologize to her for being an ass, but she says that it's okay because he's basically an ass who gave her life back. So the next patient was in the clinic and Izzy worked on him and he had a bullet in his shoulder. And he got it in a war 50 years ago, and he made a decision his team didn't like, his squad didn't like, and he believes that it was friendly fire and has basically destroyed his whole life over anger about the fact that he believed it was friendly fire and not the enemy who shot him in the shoulder. And when they pull out the bullet, he asks for it. They show it to him, but it's so decomposed that he never will know now, even though the bullet has been removed. And then finally we have the Jane Doe, who is Rebecca, and she goes into surgery on her eye per Sloane's suggestion, even though it could put her baby at risk per Addison's warning. And she asks Alex for advice on whether she should wait a few more days and potentially lose vision in her eye or go through the surgery. In the end, Alex tells her or encourages her to go through with the surgery, which they do, but they almost lose the baby during the surgery. And Alex then goes to her at the end of the episode and apologizes, saying that because he pulled her out of the water, he's been treating her like he would his sister, and he's just an intern, he's not an attending, and she really should get her advice from attendings. But she points out that the reason she asked Alex in the first place is because she trusts him. Then we have some of the more dramatic pieces. Alex moves into the house taking George's room because he's moved in with Callie. Meredith, because her mother died, Thatcher and Susan are in the hospital and they're trying to be there for her with her mother's death and get to know her a bit more. And Susan suggests a family dinner, originally at their house, but then it switches to Meredith's house, where it is a very awkward family dinner. For example, Thatcher mistakes a picture of Molly as a child. No, a picture of Meredith as a child for his daughter Molly instead. And they have a back and forth. At one point, Thatcher even goes and hides in the laundry room when the circuit breaker breaks. And Derek goes and has a conversation with him, and they do have, the dinner is successful, though, again, quite awkward. Then we have the relationship dramas, and this episode was all about jealousy. And we have Colin Marlowe, who was in a 3-year relationship with Christina when she went to Stanford and was also her teacher. And Burke sees himself as a similar situation where he's the teacher of Christina, and now they're in a relationship. He's asked her to marry him, but it is revealed, of course, which should have been obvious, that Christina is not necessarily finding a lot of meaning in a marriage, like a ceremony, dress, all of that. She's like, that's not what matters. She's only marrying him to make him happy. And he then takes that to be that she doesn't really want to get married, and they have a fight over it. Though he should have realized that he's different given the fact that Colin Marlowe had proposed to Christina, he said, multiple times, and she had declined every time. And yet when Burke proposed to her, she did say yes. So obviously there's a difference there, but he's not seeing that. He's a bit jealous. And it ultimately results with Christina going to Meredith's house and sleeping over at her house. So they are currently separate for a while. And then the next drama, of course, is between George and Callie. George is complaining about Izzy and the fact that Izzy doesn't support their marriage. Then when he is talking to Derek's friend with the brain cancer who's staying in the same hotel, he finds out the hotel is a lot more expensive than he had thought it was. And so he confronts Callie about it. Callie then reveals that she's actually an heiress. Her family has a lot of money. So she has more money than what she makes as an attending. And George is upset that he was keeping that a secret from her. They have a big fight about it. Then Callie accuses Izzy of having feelings for George and George returning those feelings. And George then basically says, Izzy's way out of my league. And then she's like, well, what does that make me? Basically, he put his foot in it. He gets kicked out. He then goes to Izzy to complain. They get drunk, and George is then unfaithful to Callie with Izzy, basically proving her fears right. And that was this episode. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we'll now rank the episode on our mostly objective ranking, followed by the personal ranking. And we start with our single episode supporting character introductions. So we have Mr. Schofield, who had the bullet in his shoulder, and then we had Dr. Helen Crawford, who was the brain cancer patient and Derek's friend, who worked with him in New York and was supposedly the only one who didn't have a crush on him. Then we have the multi-episode supporting character introduction, which is Colin Marlowe, or Dr. Colin Marlowe, who was, again, the professor at Stanford that Christine had an affair with, and a renowned surgeon who has a technique named after him that he invented. And then we have our multi-season main character developments. We have Alex moving into Meredith's house, and then Meredith and her awkward family dinner. And that basically brings us to 12 points. However, there were quite a few negatives in this episode. So we start with the negative messaging or behavior, and this one was called out in the episode itself. Because of the threat from Colin Marlowe potentially becoming the chief, all of the other attendings start to kind of showboat and take on larger surgeries than they normally would, which, kind of puts the patients at risk because they're trying to show off with things that maybe they aren't quite up to snuff with. Then we also have the fact that they have multiple fights in the hallways in front of staff and patients, which is incredibly unprofessional. So those are -2 points each. Then we have our supporting relationship regression or breakup, and we have Callie and George fighting over her wealth and her secrets being kept and jealousy over Izzy. -2. -2 for George getting kicked out. -2 for George cheating on Callie with Izzy. Then we have -3 for Burke's jealousy due to Christina's past relationship with Colin and his belief that she is only marrying him to appease him, but once she's done with him, she'll leave him, and this ultimately leads to them not going home together, but Christina going to Meredith's house and sleeping there instead. And that brings us to a -1. Of course, the lowest score possible is a 1 out of 10. Therefore, this is a 1 out of 10 episode objectively. So, When more than one episode has the same score on our mostly objective rankings, they are just ranked in episode order. And our mostly objective ranking so far has in first Where the Boys Are, Don't Stand So Close to Me, Great Expectations, Wishin' and Hopin', Walk on Water, Drowning on Dry Land, Some Kind of Miracle, Let the Angels Commit, I Am a Tree, Time Has Come Today, Oh, the Guilt, Staring at the Sun, From a Whisper to a Scream, 6 Days, What I Am, Sometimes a Fantasy, and then this episode is in last place currently, Scars and Souvenirs in 17th. Now, my personal ranking for this episode, I acknowledge the negatives in this episode. However, I did also greatly enjoy the drama from like an entertainment value perspective and just an overall enjoyment of the episode perspective. However, it isn't necessarily my favorite couples that are in the dramas. And the awkward family dinner was also awkward from an outside perspective as well. And obviously, fighting in the halls, not great. None of the patients were overly compelling, although I really like the voice, like the raspiness in the voice of the actress who plays Helen. I love her voice. I think her voice is amazing. But I gave it a 7 because I see the entertainment value. But infidelity is a big no-no for me. Number 1. Number 2, yelling in front of patients in the hallways. Not good. Putting your patients potentially at risk by doing things beyond your skill set to show off. Not good. Like they almost lost the baby from like Rebecca's baby because of the fact that they were trying to push for the surgery to be sooner so that they could, show off. I can't ignore those things. And the dramas in this case were all negative dramas in that they were, you know, relationships regressing, not progressing. And so overall, like I said, I gave it a 7 out of 10 for the entertainment value, for the enjoyment of watching it, but negatives still considered, 7 out of 10, making the personal ranking Some Kind of Miracle in first, Walk on Water, Drowning on Dry Land, Wishin' and Hopin', Great Expectations, Don't Stand So Close to Me, 6 Days, Where the Boys Are, From a Whisper to a Scream, Staring at the Sun, Let the Angels Commit, I Am a Tree, What I Am. I put this episode in 17th, Scars and Souvenirs, followed by Sometimes a Fantasy, Time Has Come Today, and then in 17th we have Oh, the Guilt. Bringing us now to the mostly objective series ranking so far, and we have season 1 in first with 77.78%, season 2 second with 76.67%, and then season 3 has 112 out of a possible 230 so far. On the personal side, we have season 2 in first with 72.22%, season 1 in second at 66.67%, and season 3 so far has 139 out of a possible 230. But with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Grey's Anatomy Season 3, Episode 17, Scars and Souvenirs. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.